Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Brussels. Welcome back to the bubble. Welcome back to our monthly webinar series, The Month Ahead, which we do at the beginning of each month, looking at the month ahead in public affairs and in advocacy. And it seems like every year when we come back off the summer break, we're just back from summer and we look up and we're staring the end of the year straight in the face. And this year is no different. We have an absolutely packed autumn, and it's already in full swing. And so to help you out, we have Stefan today, and we're going to help you manage at least the first month of that, and then we'll be back again at the beginning of October for October. But before we dive in, I just want to let you know that this series is a joint effort between Lanzcape and our sister company, AdvocacyStrategy. And Lanzcape, really, you should check us out. One of the big challenges of working in public affairs is making sure that you are covered with everything you need to be covered on in terms of files, without all the noise and the information overload, which usually comes with making sure you have good coverage. And that is where Lanzcape steps in. It's clean, systematic. It's available at an incredible price. And it helps you know that you are covered with minimal effort and maximal effectiveness. And we do something else as well, which is that we support your team with expert guidance. And again, the guidance is really deep advocacy know-how from, again, our sister company, AdvocacyStrategy, stepping up your whole team in terms of baseline skill level on the advocacy front. So check out Lanzcape. And with that, let me hand over to our speaker today, Stefan Borst, one of the three main partners of AdvocacyStrategy. And I will let Stefan introduce himself and then take it away from there. Stefan?
Thank you very much, Michelle, and welcome everybody. I hope you all enjoyed a good, healthy, and restful summer break. We always talk about the second half of the year, which is utterly wrong because it's not a half of a year. It's basically 10 weeks to Christmas, and then 2025 will come to a close. Myself, for those who don't know me, I'm one of the partners in AdvocacyStrategy. We are a management consultancy for public affairs, which means we professionalize the public affairs happening in associations and corporations, trying to improve processes and make public affairs more impactful. I'm a German. I have been in Brussels for 20 years. I started out as a journalist, then ran the office of a chemicals company here for a decade, and then entered into the world of consulting. Have been doing that ever since, and now I'm really excited about talking how the next month will come towards us and what will happen. On our agenda today are the usual ones. That's not a big deviation from what you all know. We look at the European Commission, the European Parliament, the Council, and some of the surrounding events that are happening in September. There is quite some important things happening. If we do a little recap, the Danish presidency is now in full swing. It started. Something that is still looming is the review of the transparency register in the wake of the Huawei scandal. So there is a new anti-fraud architecture coming towards us. So it's a good time to maybe evaluate, are you in the register? How are you in the register? And have you updated in time? And if there is a particular interest that you might have, there is also a possibility to still influence this development. And then, of course, all the institutions went into the summer break. Not too much was happening, apart from a couple of public consultations, some of them in a very unfriendly way, even ending in the summer break, which is a way of the Commission saying, we don't really want you to participate. But more importantly, there is a big event coming towards us tomorrow, and that is the State of the Union address. This is a something I witnessed for the first time a long time ago, and that now has become basically the lighthouse for what is happening in the next work program. Ursula von der Leyen will undoubtedly tomorrow speak about everything she wants to get done within the next 12 months. This will heavily influence the preparation of the work program 26. And it is also an invitation for you to basically adjust your own prioritization in the light of where the Commission wants to go, where they want to put their emphasis for the weeks to come. It's also September, as usual, you're probably aware of it. Very good time to physically reconnect with people. There are a lot of events happening. There are a lot of evening receptions, etc. I always advise people to make use of them as much as you can, because after all, we're all human beings, and connecting in the real analog world is always preferable to a digital meeting. So there is a ton of proposals that are on the table. I will not go through all of them because we will exhaust all the time that we have. I just want to highlight a couple of them. The one, of course, is the multi-annual financial framework that is currently in the making, that will take us from, so that the last financial framework lasts until 2027. The next one will pick up in 2028 and will end in 2034. So this is a really big piece of projection out there that will really drive the development of the European Union and what it is doing. And it is also a good opportunity if you have particular interests, if you have certain things that you believe are relevant in that, then make sure you get in touch with the people currently fiddling out the details. So that is really something that's a big piece of legislation, and it's a very good time to actually engage. Then there is the Industrial Decarbonization Accelerator Act, which is kind of a tongue twister for German, but I got it out decently well enough. This is something that is particularly interesting to energy-intensive industries. So if, for example, you have a background in the chemicals industry or in the steel and cement industry or any industry that uses a lot of energy and has to cope with the fairly strict regulations in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, this is a piece of legislation to have a look at, because it aims to simplify and speed up permitting processes, especially for green industrial projects. And it also aims to foster lead markets for low carbon products. So if the product you're making qualifies for that, this might be something to have a closer look at. And last but not least, that is very close to my heart because I've been dealing with it for a long time, that is the final REACH revision. So just why I say final, this has been in the making for quite a long time. And it is now in the last quarter of 2025. This is supposed to actually happen. Commission has postponed this quite a couple of times. They may postpone it again, but it is scheduled to happen, so I expect it to happen this time. Yeah, and also to echo Michael, if any questions come up, please feel free to add them in the chat, just to make sure that you hear that from myself as well. Looking at the European Commission, there are still a couple of consultations that go beyond the summer break end. One of them, the Digital Fairness Act, which is really something, if you're operating in the digital field, is something you want to take into consideration for participating, because it is a legislation that will close the gap between consumer protection and some of the, let's say, unfair or maybe misleading marketing tactics, especially now that we see a rise of digital influencers. And with digital, I mean artificial influencers. So basically not human beings promoting a certain product, but AI-driven influencers promoting certain products and services, added into an addictive design, potentially targeted at minors, and overall unfair personalization practices. So this is something you want to have a look at. If you're operating in the biotech field, the Biotech Act consultation is still open until the 24th of October. This is really critically important because it aims to bridge the high safety standards that we enjoy in Europe with the reality that we need to stay competitive in a global environment. So this is really something where hopefully the balance is struck in a very positive way and that the Commission gets it right once that happens for this industry. And yet again, some of the MFF proposals, but I already mentioned that, is absolutely critical to have a look at. When it comes to advice, we always put a huge emphasis on proper monitoring. There are tools out there like Lanzcape that make it easy for you to know where the ball is and to not miss anything happening. There is then, of course, my personal recommendation is that you put together a spreadsheet. Usually you're not only following one dossier, you might be following several, and make sure that you have all of them lined up. The more or the earlier you engage in the drafting phase, the better your chances of influence actually are. Make sure you know your people in the Commission, make sure you have a proper stakeholder mapping. There are very good templates out there. If not, there are some on our website. You can get them out of the internet. All of them are valuable. Make sure you utilize the knowledge others already have created and put that to the test there. There are also a couple of things that might be forgotten on your agenda. And in order to get back in front of the development, the best thing I can recommend is talk to someone who has done all the research for you. Talk to someone who is in the process, talk to someone who naturally has to be in that process. If it is not, let's say, your priority topic, but it's something you're following on a secondary trajectory, make sure you talk to the people who have that as their priority. They will save you tons of research time and get you to be up to date much quicker than if you started your own Google research or any other kind of research there. For the State of the Union, I'm expecting a quite different State of the Union address this time, because the reality of Europe has changed quite significantly. We have seen something that the EU has traditionally been very strong at, and that is trade agreements. So we've seen the United States and President Trump basically tell the EU that they have the shorter stick in any kind of tough negotiation. And the meeting that happened in Washington that turned out into a sort of a, you could call it deal, but basically a declaration of submission on the EU side has very clearly demonstrated that trade and strength in trade needs to be something that we need to take into account. This is not on the slide, but I personally believe that trade will be mentioned in the State of the Union address, but let's see to that. The situation in Ukraine is largely unchanged, so the Rearm Europe agenda will be high, a topic of high importance. Increasingly, though, after we saw that basically France now is entering the unstable phase with the Bayrou government failing, and the German media is even asking, is France is still governable or not with the high levels of debt and the protests that are coming on stream there. So we have one of the big member states being very unstable, whereas now Germany has a fairly stable government after the very unstable Ampel days. But Germany puts a new focus on competitiveness, industrial strength, and making sure that we keep our sovereignty not only in the digital space, but also in the overall economic space. So I do believe that competitiveness and the economic transformation will take a bigger stage in this State of the Union address, particularly also Ursula von der Leyen being a German and in the same party family as the German Chancellor. There will be the talk about digital sovereignty, no doubt. This is one of the, we just saw the ruling on Google, which already gave us back some nasty remarks from Washington, D.C., even though it was a softened decision on Google than was actually envisioned in the beginning. But that will stay a topic. I think on the lower end of the important spectrum will be the green transition and climate action. That will take a little bit less importance than in the past couple of years. And migration and asylum, of course, will also remain a topic, but not as virulent as it used to be. After this State of the Union, there always is a letter of intent. The letter of intent is something I would strongly recommend you to read. It gives you very clear direction of what will happen. Then engage often, engage early, build your coalitions, and really focus on the implementation as well. The EU has a tradition in conceiving laws that they never properly implement. Every omnibus is a testament to that reality, because it's basically the realization that the legislation has not yielded the kind of outcome that was originally intended. So that is really something to put a little bit more effort on. The work program 2026 happens in a European Commission that is, you have to realize that originally the Commission was conceived as a collegial body. So it's basically not a super hierarchical body. It is something where all of the commissioners should work together to go forward. This has now been turned upside down, basically, at least by this presidency, because the von der Leyen presidency is a hallmark of presidential leadership of the European Commission. So what happens in the work program will be decided on the 13th floor and nowhere else. There will be conversations with certain commissioners, but overall this will be decided by the office of the Commission President. That is, if you have any route into that closed circle, make sure you leverage it to get intelligence. There are some journalists who are fairly well connected. Make sure you read their articles and stay on top of developments. But this really is something, if you have a possibility to influence it, take it. Because if it's in the work program, you have a very good chance that your topic is actually going to happen in the year to come. You can also monitor a little bit of the policy signals outside, track the parliamentary responses, the committee reactions to new emerging themes, and just make sure, I always recommend it as an ex-journalist, make sure you stay close to the journalists. They're a very well-informed bunch, and it always is helpful to know what they are thinking about. The finalization of this work program will happen in October, November, and then we will know where we will go next year. In the meantime, in the Parliament, right as we speak, there is a session of the European Parliament happening. Yesterday, we saw some debates on competitiveness and public procurement. Today, it will be more about security. There will be addresses by the President of the Republic of Moldova. There is the situation in Ukraine. There are a couple of directives being discussed, but it's still the one thing that might be more interesting to watch, really, for example, because it affects any company that has a value chain that crosses the EU border. So the carbon border adjustment mechanism might be something that is being discussed, and it might be something you want to take a closer look at. And tomorrow, the day will start with the State of the Union address. And afterwards, there will be some votes. There are 6 co-decision files, so European Social Fund, European Regional Development Fund, and the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So these are things that definitely should belong on your radar. And on Thursday, we will do a little bit of stock taking on the European elections 2024. There will be the European Universities Alliance. There is a vision for that. in the light of many academics now leaving the United States. That actually might be something that is very important for Europe. But most importantly, the European Parliament is now taking swing and really entering into the action phase of this current presidency. The general advice here: make sure you look at the State of the Union address and then prioritize your own priorities that you want to follow up on in the light of those. This may change what you put on top of your priority list, and then engage early and make sure that you have a look at how the different parties in after the State of the Union address. There, of course, will be reactions. Make sure you monitor those, and you will identify quickly who might be promoters or detractors for the particular topic that is of your interest. Also, make sure that whatever you ask, you take the multi-annual financial framework into consideration. It is, again, it is the framework. It is the box in which you are certainly able to operate. And outreach, focus the outreach on committees handling the MFF proposals from July. They will drive much of the autumn workload and set the frameworks for 2026 and the budget implementation and the post-2027 planning, of course. So that is something to focus on. For the council, this month's council meeting, so we will have quite a couple of council meetings. There is a priority on the rearm plan, defense spending, critical infrastructure, and all of these things. I would take, as an economic actor, I would take note of the revisiting of the Draghi and Letta reports. These are critically important reports that gave a lot of good indications what Europe could do to become a more competitive place again. But of course, we will see how that translates into actual action. There also will be a meeting regarding a competitive and green Europe. There we will see again this pressure sphere between making sure we stick to our climate change commitments while not ruining our global competitiveness. So this pressure will continue to dominate some of the meetings. We will also see some national elections. So the Norwegian parliamentary elections actually just happened. And then the Moldova parliamentary elections, that is why the Moldovan president is there on September 28th. But apart from that, the council workload will intensify while the year comes to a close. So this is really just the starting point at this moment in time. Advice is fairly straightforward. Make sure you stay in touch with the people you have identified in the Danish presidency. Give them the information that is critical. I would also advise you to already maybe start building some connections to the next presidency. There will be Cyprus. So have a meeting with their permanent representation people and discuss maybe figure out what their priorities might look like. Work within the presidency priorities. It is much easier to get your point across if you take those into account. People will more likely to listen to you. And then, of course, make sure for the October build-up, because that is now, the pressure will intensify in the run-up to the year. So you should get ready and prepared for that. There are other developments that I want to briefly highlight, especially if you are operating in an environment that has to do with research and innovation. The European Research and Innovation Days 2025 are happening on 16th and 17th of September. This is literally one of the most excellent events to be present. If any of that research and development topics are of importance to you, because everyone will be there, the journalists, the policymakers, industry leaders, academics, you can have them all in one place. And if you're physically there, much easier way to get your point across or forge alliances or corporations. This is a really, really a good place to be. And then we will have the 12th Annual European Cybersecurity Conference on September 25th. Yet again, that is also something where you can get easy meetings with a lot of very influential people in that space. If any of the, sorry, my voice is failing. If any of this is relevant for you, plan your engagement properly. So make sure you know who the stakeholders are that you're interested in, what you want to say to them, write it down, ideally. If you write it down, you probably weed out a lot of the chaff and not important information that you want to bring across. And then make sure you also prepare proper follow-ups. Do have leave behinds ready. If you're talking to a policymaker, make sure you're able to give them a piece of paper where your key positions are put on. And of course, once you have had those meetings, make sure you share the insights that you've gathered within your network. Brussels is a bazaar for information. The more you share, the more you get. So I always recommend people to engage in information sharing. It will yield rewards later on. So post-summer preparation. September is critical for re-establishing your visibility, your own visibility as a company, as a person, as an organization. Activate your stakeholders, have those catch-up meetings, have a coffee, have a chat, make sure you are fully aware of what drives your stakeholders forward in the run-up to the end of the year. And make sure that your 2026 planning is really in order, that you capture all the important developments and do the monitoring of all your activities properly. I cannot emphasize that too much. Too often, activities are not properly logged and not properly followed up. Doing that will be very good for your organization and actually your resource allocation. September checklist, starting State of the Union address, really important, don't miss it. Then follow the work program development until the end of the year. And then make sure you stay within the confines of the Danish presidency with all your argumentations and the papers you want to put forward. At AdvocacyStrategy, we always try to give people a very clear process how to follow up on these things. I recommend have your data ready, have your speaking points ready, make sure you understand the operational impact of certain developments on your business, if there is a business you're working on, and formulate your key positions, write it down on paper, have it ready. Do a situational analysis, be situational aware. If everybody is talking about security, it may not be the best time to talk about your topic if it has not anything to do with security. So make sure you're aware of what the bubble is currently focused on and integrate it in your own narrative. Then check your positioning, your stakeholders and alliances. Make sure you're aware of possible changes. Alliances and stakeholder positions can shift. And very often I've seen that happening, especially in the parliament. The majority suddenly shift and people still talk to the same groups of people that worked for them in the past, but haven't realized that actually now they need to talk to different people. So this is really something to take into account. Have a written out strategy formulated. And I usually insist on writing it down because it helps getting clarity. And then go from the planning phase into the action phase. Do direct engagement, preferably do indirect engagement. Make sure you create sort of a buzz noise sphere around your topics that goes into your direction. Measure and evaluate the outcome of your activities and report this internally. Make sure the people, the decision makers in your organizations know about what you're doing, what the outcome is. And one thing that is not on this slide, adapt your approach flexibly. If you see something is not working, revisit it, reformulate it, retry it. public affairs is a constant process of adaptation. And once you get that running, I'm pretty sure you will see very good results. Now with that, there is a long checklist we put down here. I will not talk about each and every point, but I would invite you now, if there are questions, if there are things you'd like to discuss, you can look at all of these checklist points. We can discuss these. I'm very happy. I'm handing it back now to Michelle, and then we can have a discussion about certain points.
Thank you very much, Stefan. That was fantastic, and we made great time. Before we close out, just one question that I got, which is in fact quite interesting. You mentioned, which I think is something that is, by now fairly well known in Brussels, with power, this is what the question was, with power more concentrated near the top, if you don't already have a contact in this small circle, do you have any advice as to how to go about reaching somebody?
Yes. So we do have a very encapsulated leadership situation in the European Commission, but that does not mean that they operate in complete isolation. You have seen when Commission President von der Leyen put her budgetary ideas out there, she got quite a lot of backlash from some commissioners that were displeased that they hadn't seen the full proposal beforehand. So there are options. Make sure that you engage with the commissioners who are more open. They are still plugged into the system. If you can identify contacts in the General Secretariat that are willing to talk to you, that is a very important body. It became even more important during the Juncker Commission, where Martin Selmayr, his chief of staff, basically he formulated that in a way that it's now a very powerful body. So engaging with that body is very helpful. The Directorate Generals also, they do all the heavy lifting. So they will know what's going on. They can give you quite good insights and even carry some of your ideas forward. It's not so sure that they will survive, but it is one indirect route of access. And then, of course, there is, now I'm talking more from the media side of perspective, this commission is not isolated from public opinion. So if you have a topic that can be utilized for public interest and for public pressure, then make sure you evaluate that route as well and check if you can get enough public attention onto it, because then it's also an indirect way of influencing this commission.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And so if then there are no other questions, I would like to make sure to thank our fantastic research team, Giacomo and Mirela, who put together the content that goes into these webinars each month. Thank you very much, Giacomo and Mirela. Great work. And I would like to thank everyone who's here for attending, for taking the time this afternoon. We do these at the beginning of each month, apart from, I think, August. So the next one will be on the 2nd of October, again at 1 p.m. We will be sending out invitations by email, so keep an eye on your email inboxes and follow us on LinkedIn. We have a nice page there with a great newsletter as well, by the way, which is also highly informative and also done in conjunction with AdvocacyStrategy. And there's more advice and tips there, so make sure to sign up for that. And we hope to see you at the next webinar as well. So thanks for coming today. And last but not least, once more, try Lanzcape. It's new and it's really changed the game in terms of getting clear, simple coverage without noise and information overload, as well as advice for your team. So check us out. And once again, thanks for attending today. See you next month.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle, Giacomo,
Thanks,
Mirela.
Stefan.
Have a very good day. Bye.